Sorry boys, you've got to stay there. Good afternoon and welcome back to my garden on an absolutely glorious day. Spring has definitely sprung. It is the kind of day where it would be rude not to spend a little bit of time in the garden. I don't have a particular plan. I desperately need to start weeding some grass out of some of the beds before it takes over. I'm going to have a go at sowing some seeds. There's still potential for a lot of frost, so I'm being quite careful about this. But I have some parsnips that I'm going to direct sow into this bed that I'm sat next to. I'm going to try and sow some more snapdragons. I will do these in modules to replace the ones that died because of the storm. And then I've got a mixture of some really old flower seeds that I'm just going to scatter in what will become the cut flower bed. Just see if I get germination, but they're so old. I'm not convinced. So this one's Nasturtium. This one's Calendula. This one's Verbena. And I've got two more one more Nasturtium and one more Calendula. So, and then I really also want to get the raspberry canes at least situated. Things are still growing where they're going to ultimately live, but I think the things that are growing will be finished growing and eaten at the time that the raspberries really start to take hold. It's really fascinating to just sort of observe around the garden all of the changes just since 2 weeks ago when I last recorded a garden tour at the end of February. Things are growing that I didn't think had survived the winter, so that's exciting. I shall look forward to our March tour so I can show that off to you. My reactor sunglasses are making me look like a blind mouse again. I'm still not quite used to wearing them. So I hope you're having a really good week and you're enjoying some sunshine wherever you are. And thank you for choosing my channel to spend a little bit of time. I hope you enjoy watching me potter around in my allotment. I will catch up with you in a little while. So what's actually happened here is that the material that I used to fill this bed up was a lot of sods of grass from when I was digging a hole in the other part of the garden. And the grass that was coming up is actually from that. I thought it was sort of grass that had crept in from another part of the garden. So I can't dig it out because it means digging out half the bed. So instead, what you've seen me do is layer over a new layer of cardboard, and then I've just popped some, it's like a soil improver on top, weigh it down. That will just give an extra layer of darkness to try and kill off the grass and sort of get it to compost instead of trying to regrow. I've also just wet that over. I haven't watered it enough. That's not going to wet the cardboard. That's just going to break down over time. But I've wet the topsoil, and I am going to sow the parsnips into it. It's always a good idea to pre-water the ground with parsnips, apart from anything else. The seeds are very fine, and so it helps to stick them to the soil. The intention of being, for me in this case, that as this parsnip plants hopefully germinate and start to grow, as they root down, that will help again with that cardboard and the grass underneath it to decay and break down and compost. It's the theory anyway. Filming whilst using the microphone, it's always really difficult to know how much background noise you can hear, because the atmosphere is just full of people mowing lawns, chainsaws, motorbikes, children playing in the garden. It's just incredible the impact that some sunshine has on everybody's well-being, I think is probably the right word. Next job, we're in this bed. I have just pulled something out of here that looks like maybe I shouldn't have done. I thought it was grass, and it turns out that it might have been a something else. A spring onion, maybe? I don't know. Anyway, we're going to give it up as lost. And we're going to get these raspberries in here. This bed is actually really full of things that are going to be edible soon. I can see maybe spring onions, garlic chives, kale, pak choi, chard, cabbages. I'm wondering if maybe this isn't the best place to put the raspberries, and maybe I make it the middle bed. But I think it will be fine. I think it will be fine for them to be in here. There's only 5, and I haven't done anything else with them, so I think it's for the best that they go in here. Yes. I'm committed. Let's get on with the job. Look at the roots. Look, I think these white bits are roots. These green bits are buds. So those white bits must be roots. That's my thinking. Found a volunteer little poppy flower that was growing in the bed that the raspberries are growing in, and so I'm just transplanting it into the cut flower bed. Look what I've just found. That is a coriander. Focus. That's a coriander that I direct sowed last September, October maybe. And if I look, there's another one. There. And there. And there. Such an incredible surprise. I'm so excited. So I'm going to have to plant my raspberries around it. Hello, Radar. Hello, baby. You don't often feature in the videos, do you? Can you stop using my garden as a toilet, please? I've opted to transplant that little coriander instead of planting the raspberries around it. I'm using these little sticks that I'm sticking upright into the garden bed to try and dissuade anything that would come along and try and dig that little seedling out from being able to do so. When I'm planting the raspberries, I'm just digging a hole enough up until sort of the first nub of the stem, and then I am backfilling that in. Then I'm using my foot just to really firm the cane into place. I'm trying to be quite precise with the spacing and give each raspberry cane about 300 centimetres or 12 inches between each cane. You guys are always super keen to tell me that I should not put weeds in my compost bin. And I am here to tell you that it is perfectly fine to put weeds in your compost bin. This is a relatively small gardening space, and there's no way I could generate very much compost if I did not put absolutely every scrap that comes out of this growing space into the compost bin. If your compost bin is healthy and active, then it will digest the weeds quickly and just the same as everything else. If it's really vibrant and hot, it will also kill off all the seeds. If not, it might just take a bit of time. But again, when applying no-dig and permaculture principles to the garden, the thing that often people worry about is seeds. But the principles of no-dig and permaculture are that you're not disturbing the soil, which means that the seeds aren't encouraged to germinate. It's not an overnight process. It's years of dedication. But it is ultimately in pursuit of having a truly healthy soil ecosystem that can manage its and self-regulate. Yeah, it works absolutely fine. Over-hygienic gardens are not for me. So if you don't want to put weeds in your compost bin, you do not have to, but I'm going to put my weeds in mine. I'm now just scattering the seeds in the bed so that they'll grow a bit like wildflowers. There's Calendula, Nasturtium and Verbena going into this bed today, and then I'm just scattering them on the top of the soil, and I will water them in a minute. Hello, I'm in the shed and I'm going to have another go at trying to film so you can see what I'm doing. But as I don't have a top-down view, you're down there and I'm having to stoop to speak to you. So I'm going to sow some snapdragons and some Calendula. Oh, apparently just some snapdragons to try and replace the ones that got killed by the storm. This is probably too big a tray. Don't think I have that much seed. So that's too big a tray. We're not going to use that. But maybe this one, or maybe rather than doing modules I'll just do them back in a little tray. Yes, we're going to put them in here. I'm just going to fill this little tray with peat-free seed sowing compost. If this is the first time you're watching one of my videos, I use a seed sowing compost because I don't buy a lot of multi-purpose compost. I tend to use sort of soil improvers and rotted manure and things like that. So when I'm starting seeds, I buy seed sowing compost. But if you haven't got any, you're not obliged. If you've got a good peat-free multi-purpose compost, you might want to give it a little bit of a sieve, get any lumps out, and you have everything you need to start sowing. So these snapdragons, it says start under cover in September to November or February to March, or direct sow April to May. Sprinkle seeds onto soil and gently firm in. Light is required for germination, so do not cover. So I'm just going to take, there's not that many seeds left. Oh, there's a few stuck. These seeds are so tiny. So can you see? See how tiny those seeds are? I tend to work on the assumption that if something gives you lots and lots of teeny tiny seeds, then the chance of germination is low. And so it makes sense to scatter or sow as many seeds as you can. Now that they're scattered on top, I'm just taking the back of my hand to really firm that down. And make sure that the seed has good contact with the soil, which will also help with germination. And then I'm making sure that I clean off my fingers in case any seeds got picked up on my skin. Time for a label. I wonder if I have... Sometimes I find the same label that I had before, but not this time. I always write my labels in pencil because then I can use a rubber or an eraser, depending on where you come from, to clean them off and start again. I have no idea what today's date is. We'll just say March. That's another old pack of seed empty. I'm going to put this in the mini greenhouse outside. Holy dokely! What's next? Spring onions. This is what I've been looking for. Okay, we want that tray back. This year I have, can't talk to you from up there. This year I have decided that I want to be self-sufficient in fresh herbs, spring onions, lettuce, tomatoes and garlic. So these are 5 things that I am going to be focusing my attentions on, and everything else is a nice to have. It's really easy to distract with so many things. So each year I sit down and have a conversation with myself about what it is that I want to be self-sufficient in for that year, and then try to just focus on that. Because the years where I try and do a little bit of everything, I end up getting an awful lot of nothing. But when I keep that focus smaller, I can give it my attention and I'm more successful. Again, that might not work for everybody, but it's what works for me. So I plan to sow spring onions a lot, at least once a month, maybe in the high season every couple of weeks, to keep a constant crop and through the winter. Again, I've got really old seed. I refuse to buy new seed until I've used up old seed. So I've got 2 packets of spring onions here. I've had really, really variable germination off of these. It's a little bit difficult to know whether it's the seed or whether it's because I've let module trays dry out, or I planted it too late and it got cold. So this is my my attempt under controlled conditions. So I'm just going to do a big mix into this tray, fill all the modules. This is a 48, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, this has got to end in a whole number. 50. 5 8s. 40. Pretty sure. Yes. 40 trays. 40 modules. So I'm going to fill 40 modules with spring onions. And if I get poor germination, then both of these packets will go in the bin and I will buy some fresh seed. Okay. First up is to fill all the trays, and then I'm going to squish it down. So you find out that some trays are fuller than others, but it doesn't really matter. But I do think that, like, evenly squooshing down each of the modules does matter. Okay, need to try and attempt to have at least a little bit of clean hands for this. First up is this packet of white Lisbon, very classic. I always multi-sow spring onions, but because I'm worried about the germination, I'm going to aim for about 8 seeds in each tray. Normally I would do 5. That's 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Sort of got a feel for what that feels like in my fingers, and I've stopped counting now. I'm just making sure there's a nice little cluster. Spring onions are really easy, well, it's really easy to grow them in bunches like this. You don't have to sow them individually. That's just a lot of headache, I think. If you just sow them multi-sown in a module, and then you can either harvest them as a bunch, or you can harvest the biggest one and then the smaller ones catch up. And it just makes the job of succession sowing a little bit easier, because you get more harvests from one sowing. Does that make sense? Some of the people who watch my channel are quite experienced gardeners, and so they will probably have some experience of doing something like this, but I've noticed increasingly less experienced gardeners are watching my channel, and so I'm going to try and make a bit more of an effort to share with you the steps and the things that I'm going through in the decision making process. Up to now I've sort of assumed that that's not what you watch my content for, but I think not that my channel is massive, in fact it's tiny, but it has grown a little bit, and as it grows I'm just noticing a bit of a change in the trends of the kinds of comments and the things that people ask for. So if you think that's useful, if you'd like to know more about that, then do please leave me a comment and let me know. I would be happy to oblige. Okay, we're on the last row, and I haven't run out of the white Lisbon yet, so this is just going to be just a whole tray of this variety. In fact, I'm just going to spread the last few seeds around, and then that's another packet of seeds used up. There we go. Okay, so bear with me a second. So what you can see is all of the modules have quite a large number of seeds in them. I wouldn't normally put this many seeds in a module. Some of them have like 10 or 12. But because I'm suspicious of the rate of germination, I am hedging my bets by overfilling them that a proportion will not germinate. If that turns out to be wrong, I can just split the modules when I plant them out, so it's not the end of the world. There is always a way of dealing with it, but in general terms you probably would maybe put 5 or 6 seeds in each module. And then to finish this off, you just sprinkle some more compost over the top. Because these are all the same seeds, I'm not super worried about them migrating from module tray to module tray in this process, so I'm doing it a bit slapdash, which I think pretty much sums up most of my approach to gardening actually. This is why this time of year in spring particularly is such a lovely time, because I often wonder if I sound quite pessimistic about my gardening, because I don't over worry about things or stress about things. If it happens, it happens. And for those large chunks of the year where you're really taking gardening on faith that something someday will happen, And then you get to the spring or in the high summer and you sort of look around and you go, oh yeah, that thing that I tried, it actually turned out to do exactly what I wanted it to do. And I wasn't completely deranged thinking that planting this here would make any difference, or planting that there would actually work, or that any of what I'm doing is a good idea. But know that it is, and something somewhere will nearly always happen if you just give it a go. Okay. There's a whole tray of spring onions. Spring onion, white Lisbon. I'll definitely know what that says in like 6 or 8 weeks' time, for sure. That's perfectly legible. That can go out in the mini greenhouse. Time for a little tidy up, and I think that will be us done for today. I'm going to go and take the doggies for their walk. As usual, thank you so much for watching my channel. Really appreciate you spending some time with me in the garden this afternoon. It's been a glorious day. I hope you've enjoyed some time outdoors or some time thinking about the gardening season to come. If you get a chance, please leave a comment below and let me know what you've been getting up to in your gardens this week. Do all the things that YouTube enjoys, like, comment and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Thanks again. Bye bye.